Feel the rush and roar of Tigress. New at Busch Gardens. Ride Florida's tallest launch coaster with an inverted zero-G roll, 150 feet in the air. Take on the new Tigress, now open at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. Florida's thrill ride leader. Get a Busch Gardens Silver Pass for only $10.99 a month plus down payment. Monthly payment plan requires a down payment of $50 and 12 monthly payments. Florida residency required.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I don't have much of a gimmick for opening us up this afternoon, evening, whenever you happen to be listening to this. If we're your morning commute kind of podcast thing, then, I imagine part of your logic is, well, it can only get better from here, but we thank you for listening. I can be that live or after the fact. I'm Robert Winfree, I am your host. We are down one Mark Radulich this evening because Mark A hates all things horror, B hates me, and C had tickets to Whitesnake, so he just kind of went, you know what, if you guys want to do this, go forth, have fun, but I won't be available. On the plus side, I got two people to replace him, so I should probably introduce what we're doing. First, tonight we are reviewing the latest Stephen King adaptation, this being Pet Sematary. This came out a few weeks ago. We're a little bit behind here because, well, there were some other things that came out between now and then that had slightly greater priority, but such is life. But here with me, filling in for Mark and helping me talk about this turkey and all the things surrounding it, be that money, critics, etc., etc. First up, from guesting on a few different of our podcasts, and the owner, proprietor, purveyor of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna is here. Alexis, thank you for being here. How you doing?
You know, Mark probably wouldn't have bowed out if you quit bashing Thor Ragnarok whenever we do our MCU recaps.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to keep the spirit of Mark's trolling alive, but
Someone's got to.
It's just not the same. Also with us, to the extent that his voice will allow it this evening, from again, a bunch of guest appearances across various podcasts and whatnot. Jason Teasley is here. First time in a while he's been on the show. Jason, nice to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Like I said, my voice might go at some point, but all being said and considered, I'm good. This is the first time I've been back since our infamous Venom review and me losing my mind over Carnage being a Raggedy Ann ripoff. But we're fine. We'll push through and totally destroy this piece of crap.
All right. Yeah. For those of you unaware, I don't know how many people were terribly impressed with this. I don't know what you got, but anyone else out there listening may have thought of it. The three of us, not terribly. enamored of this particular adaptation of Pet Sematary. So, again, this has been out for a few weeks, so I'm still going to warn you that I'm going to spoil things, but at this point, if you haven't seen it, you're not going to, kind of scenario. But Pet Sematary, again, this is the second film adaptation of the novel by Stephen King. This follows the Creed family, predominantly Dr. Lewis Creed, played by Jason Clarke, who continues his run as giant meat puppet number 47. Amy Semmets as his wife, Rachel. John Lithgow is in this movie. He plays their neighbor and their two kids, Ellie and Gage. The Creed family moves from Boston to a small town in Maine because, who wants to live in the big city their whole life? So they move. They buy some property. Lewis sets up shop as the town doctor. I mean, is there a more respected position than the town doctor? Sorry, a bad arachnophobia reference. On their first day moving into the new house, Rachel and their daughter Ellie see a couple of local kids burying a pet in the local pet cemetery. Ellie sees a big pile of wood that's been built up along one end and starts climbing it, and John Lithgow shows up and tells her, no, that's a bad idea. I almost want to just tear into some of the writing of this right off the bat, but I'm going to save it. But that is the introduction of Judd, who is, again, the neighbor of the Creed family. Lewis, he works at the university hospital. Sorry, not just the town doctor. He works at a local university. And one of the only quasi scary parts of this film is kind of the play they get off of a student who he's unable to save, who gets hit by a car, and he can't save this poor guy who dies. But his spirit starts talking to him and warns him not to venture beyond the barrier, that it's there for a reason. He doesn't for a while, but eventually, the call of the unknown does get to him, along with a really unfortunate circumstance. This family has a cat that, the daughter Ellie loves a lot. It gets hit by a car and dies. And John Lithgow, his character's name is Judd, not really wanting this little girl to go through a lot of pain, takes the cat and Lewis and takes him to beyond the barrier to a promontory in a swamp where they bury the cat. The cat then shows back up the next day. This freaks Lewis out a little bit, who's a pretty devout atheist. But the cat comes back a little bit different. He's slightly more malicious. He has an ill temperament. He attacks people on occasion. But the cat's back, and life goes on for a little bit. Then I believe it was at Ellie's next birthday party, she winds up rather tragically hit by a truck that's traveling on the road near them. She dies. Lewis can't deal with this. He winds up digging up her body and taking it to the real pet cemetery, where she comes back the next night, but is also changed, and some pretty horrible things happen. She winds up killing her mother, and dragging the resurrected Ellie winds up killing her mother, killing Judd, drags her mother back to the cemetery, buries her. Very nearly kills Lewis, but Lewis can't bring himself to actually end her. Then Rachel, now resurrected, comes back, kills him, buries him. He comes back, and the last kind of scene we get is them coaxing the 4-year-old Gage to kind of open the car door and let them in, so that they can kill him and then bury him as well. And it's a very dark ending, which I'm in favor of the ending, mind you. Okay, that's kind of the basic plot. It's not a very plot-dense movie. a lot of Stephen King stuff isn't all that plot dense. It's more character dense, and sadly, that gets kind of left by the wayside in this movie. At least from my experience with it, I'm prepared to hear other points of view. So, Alexis, I'll start with you. Anything? I mean, I know I skipped over a few things. There's some contextual stuff. There's the trauma that his wife suffered having seen and her sister die horribly, and the movie does have a few kind of eerie parts, especially in the beginning. But what was your experience with this? Anything? I mean, you start with the good, and then anything that really just didn't work for you. So, anything positive about this at all?
Should I background there?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, should I pause until we get the beagle under control?
That's not the beagle. That's my husky.
Oh, that was the husky. Okay, sorry. I heard barking. I didn't know which one. It's like, well, it's not my dog. Who else is it?
We have a guest commentary by all dogs possible. So.
Yeah, if you guys are new to the show, it's not officially a show until one of us has our dogs bark and interrupt something. It's usually either the beagle, the husky, or the corgi. Take your bets on which one's going to start barking first. Ever the optimist, I'm going to try to talk about the things that I did like about this movie, because it wasn't 100% awful. In the grand scheme, I do prefer the original from 1989, but there were some parts that I liked about it. I did enjoy John Lithgow as Judd. I mean, in the original, you had Fred Gwynne, who was pretty much born to play that role. But Lithgow does a very good job doing it. You're right. This is a very character-driven story. We see a lot of the concept of death and how different people approach it. You mentioned Lewis is an atheist, and he is, and Rachel we clearly see is not, and death traumatizes her a lot more. There's a scene where they're talking to Ellie about death, and Lewis is like, well, death is natural. Death's just part of life. And you can see the look on his wife's face as she's sitting there going, don't say that. You can't say that. And I'm also going to add, Rachel and Ellie are probably the two strongest points of this movie. The actress who played Rachel really knocked it out of the park. This is a woman who clearly has been through so much trauma. The idea of death, it's horrible for her. It's something she has the hardest time dealing with, based on how she may have inadvertently, caused the death of her sister, Zelda. I did kind of actually prefer how they updated that over the 89. That she was a little bit more involved in it and not just, sat back and did nothing. Like I said, that actress is really great. The whole scene where Ellie comes back and she goes, are you happy to see me, Mommy? And you have this moment of Rachel both nodding and shaking her head at the same time. And by saying that, it sounds really stupid. That sounds like a really dumb thing, but she sells it. You see this woman who's like, well, yeah, it's my daughter, but oh my God, I can't get over how wrong this is. And it's really impressive. And again, in the original story was Gage, the younger child who was brought back. Ellie, I think, was a smarter choice. You get more fear out of the older child. She can interact with the family members more. She gets more dialogue, obviously. And the kid who played Ellie was amazing. I love how she was happy and joyful and just such a cute little kid. And then she dies. And she has no qualms about how creepy she plays it afterwards. There's a great scene where she's lying in bed and Lewis looks at her and goes, it's okay, you're back now. And she goes, back from where? And the silence that just hangs in that moment is so well done, and I love it. But yeah, like I said, I do prefer the 89 version. It takes a lot more from it, and it doesn't really rely on a lot of more cheap scare tactics. Because I'm not going to lie, the scene where we actually get a jump scare of Church jumping out of the closet, I kind of threw my hands up in the air and went, cat! like Adam Grant's they just pulled the cat jump scare, the ultimate of ultimate horror cliches.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah, have you ever seen that YouTube video? It's a compilation of all the cat jump scares.
No, but I imagine it's about 18 hours long.
Most prominent is the scene from End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the scene from, I think it's season 4 of Supernatural, when Dean gets cursed to suddenly be afraid of everything and a cat jumps down. We get to hear Jensen Ackles scream like a little girl, and it's awesome.
I mean, at least the Supernatural one played it for laughs instead of trying to play it straight. So,
yeah, sorry. I know. Obviously, they wanted to do something with church being scary, but you can't do a cat jump scare. Again, it's so cliche. It's not even an adorable cliche. It is the oh come on, you're better than that cliche.
all right, Jason, anything positive you wanted to say about this? And then, if not, go ahead and jump into the negatives.
Something positive. I did like the the change of with the girl dying instead of Gage. I did like that. I thought it, like Alexis said, it gave more. It gave more feeling to the movie because you could see that, and it kind of, kids creep me out anyways. Even my own daughter, she kind of creeps me out.
Be sure to play that back on her wedding day.
She's not allowed to date till she graduates college, and she's never going to college. So there's that. But I did like that aspect. That was something. I'm trying to think of something. I really don't have much positive. I mean, this had a lot of hype, a lot of build up coming out. A lot of people's like it was better than the original. Like outside of John Lithgow, I can't think of anything positive. I think he played Jed really good. I mean, of course, he had big shoes to fill, but I think he filled them very well. Now, on the negative side, this movie to me was really disjointed. The whole college kid dying this time around, the first one was creepy. I didn't like it. It was very unsettling. This time, it was a shoulder shrug for me. It didn't have any kind of feel to me whatsoever. But I'll touch on the biggest issue I had with this was Zelda dying in the dumbwaiter accident rather than basically suffocating on her own fluids. That, to this day, bothers me, and I can't watch the original. Outside of that, I mean, it was one of those things that, like I said, the original was really unsettling. This one, she dies in a dumbwaiter accident. You don't have that. You don't get that personal impact that you did from the first. So when Rachel just sees her fall down a dumbwaiter and dies, rather than start choking, and Rachel's in the house alone and has to basically watch her choke on her own fluid. That is really disturbing, especially for somebody that, in my position, my profession, I've seen people do that. It's very, very nerve-wracking, and you just, because you feel so helpless. And with the dumbwaiter, it seems like just another death that can occur to anybody.
Yeah, for me, I did enjoy John Lithgow. I usually do. John Lithgow's pretty awesome. But I think for me, the primary issue I have with this movie is that, and let me be clear, I'm fine with changes being made to source material in terms of adapting it into a movie or vice versa or anything similar. I mean, it's not sacrosanct. I mean, I understand that you're not going to, when you film, if you're making Lord of the Rings into a movie, you're not going to film every sentence of Lord of the Rings, the books. That's just not the way this works. That'd be a horrible, horrible decision. So if you're going to change things, you just have to understand their effect, understand their impact, and so you have to change things consistently throughout to try and make up the difference. Changing which child dies, I'm okay with, in no small part because they didn't go... If you're not going to go as deep with the characters in this as you do with, the novel, then having the child that dies be one that you can formulate more of an attachment to or show more of a relationship between the characters, okay, that makes sense. I mean, sure, watching, a small child die is always tragic, and I don't know if this is Jason Clarke not having the acting chops or just elements of the writing not being up to snuff, but the psychological break he suffers, in the book and in the original movie after Gage dies is represented better than it would have been here if it had been Gage. So instead, they build the relationship between the father and the daughter and then let that be kind of the impetus, let that be how the audience is able to relate to things, which, okay, again, that works. But
I get what you're saying. In the 89, there's it is a little wordy, but there's that scene where Lewis is sitting by Gage's grave, and he gives that little speech about, what happened to you was wrong, so I'm going to do this, and if it goes wrong, I'll just put you back to sleep. A little wordy, but you get a better idea of just how far Lewis has gone. So,
yeah, and again, that was an intelligent change. Unfortunately, there's a lot of the changes in this that don't make as much sense. For example, Judd being... And this is more an issue of execution than the fundamental alteration. Let me be clear about that. If they wanted to make this change, fine, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it well. In the book, his wife is still alive, and part of the bonding experience between Lewis and Judd comes from Lewis never really having a father figure in his life, so there's a bit of that. And then Lewis also saves Norma's life when she has a heart attack or chokes, something like that. I can't remember the specifics. Forgive me; it's been a while.
Yeah,
since I think
it's a heart attack.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's heart attack.
Well, we'll go with that then. And it's actually the fact that he saves his wife's life, and that he feels a little bit indebted to him, so that when the cat dies, he decides he just doesn't want his friend to have to deal with, talking to his daughter right now when he's not capable of doing it. By contrast, in this movie, they try to go with... He's just the cranky old man who doesn't want to be alive anymore, kind of thing. He's just waiting to die. And I think the actual line he says is... Ellie, this little girl, is the first person to touch my heart in quite some time. And if that's the angle you want to take, okay. But I need to see that there needs to be scenes where he is being just the crotchety neighbor. We need the get off my lawn scene, or we need to see some of the other kids in the neighborhood acting weirdly when Ellie reveals that she's kind of friends with him. Like, there needs to be more that is shown of him being in that place, instead of just, okay, I mean, he's a little bit standoffish, but on the whole, it just didn't wash for me as far as motivation.
If I can interject on that.
By all means.
I actually was a little more understanding of that, because this may sound weird, but I've kind of been in that situation that Ellie was in. Growing up, there was one gentleman in particular who thankfully I'm actually still friends with, at least on Facebook, elderly gentleman named Dennis. He and his wife Barbara, we all went to church together, and Dennis and Barbara and I were all very attached to one another. He was very kind to me, and I'll just say he was kind of a supplemental grandfather to me, So I could actually get a little bit that he was saying, Ellie touched his heart, because I have seen that happen.
Oh, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it as being that alteration. I'm saying I don't think it was executed properly in the movie.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you. It's better to me just because I have been in that situation. But I'll go ahead and give you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have fleshed it out a little better instead of leaving it like so implied. And like I said, a lot of the movie was disjointed for me. Like, didn't really, everything just kind of was there. And you had to read between lines. You had to try to figure stuff out on your own, which is good in some aspects, but not in this because you needed to invest more and get that connection a little bit more than what they fleshed out on screen.
Yeah. The other thing that, yeah, I don't know how I don't know how to really get around the fact that I don't like the ending to this.
Oh, yeah, I hated this ending. I really did.
I mean, this is to me the big thing, and let me be clear. I don't mind dark endings at all. I'm okay with them as long as they make sense. For me, for some reason, and I'll give you an example from another Stephen King property. I hate the ending of The Mist, the movie.
Then We Can't Be Friends. That is one of my favorite endings of a movie of all time.
Hang on. There's two reasons that I hate that ending. And one of them is logical, the other is not. The illogical one is, believe it or not, The Mist was actually the first Stephen King story I ever read. The first of his books that I ever picked up was the short story collection, I believe it's Skeleton Crew. And The Mist is the first story in that collection. So this is literally my introduction to the man's work. And it's still one of my favorites to reread. So the fact that they got everything else so correct, and again, they changed a few things along the way, and I don't care because it still worked. It still all made sense. And then they changed the ending. I was pissed. I was so pissed walking out of that theater. Then, after I got over my emotional issues regarding to it, okay, let's look at it objectively. See if there's maybe something else to it. And I think my issue with it from an objective standpoint is it kind of flies in the face of just how hard they've fought to that point to stay alive. And it just, if they'd set it up better, I would have been more okay with it from an objective standpoint. I like the darkness of it. I really do. I really like how dark that ending is, but just some of the way it was executed doesn't jibe for me, even if I set aside my emotional attachment to the story. Now, here, in this case, I don't know, man. I'm struggling to kind of figure out what exactly doesn't work about this ending for me, and I just...
Everything.
There's so much. Work. I don't really know where to start. So, Jason, why don't you start? What about this doesn't work for you, just specifically? Like, what really kind of sticks out to you as elements of be that writing, be that acting, or whatnot that just made you kind of throw up your hands?
First and foremost, one of my big gripes was it left out one of the most heart-wrenching parts of a movie I've ever seen. Because when Gage in the original gets stabbed with a needle and he just looks in that so innocent voice and says no fair, and you realize what's happening, that's it's heartbreaking. This, you didn't have that emotional attachment. You didn't have you had the attachment to the girl, but it was like you've seen that. Robert, me and you talk about horror movies quite often. You've seen that ending coming a mile away. You've seen him tracking her down. The mother quote unquote saving her, and then you felt no attachment to them going, three people going after the man. And didn't it seem like really funny that in the original, it took like a day or two for them to come back? It wasn't like Walking Dead instantaneous. This was, I think the mother had been dead 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The dirt, it was like they ran by, threw a handful of dirt on her, and it brought her back. And
yeah, I don't know how many of you out there have ever actually dug the type of hole you need to actually cover a body in, but that's not easy.
No, and
Bodies
the fact that... Go ahead, Alexa.
Hey, look, I'm not going into more detail than that, okay? But that's a lot more material to move than you think it is. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and you didn't have the dread that you did in the first, because you see him mentally and emotionally breaking down when he has to kill his kid again.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it's that trauma that leads to, and what I love the ending to the book. It's one of my, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite endings ever, but top 20s. Just this poor man who's lost everything, who's now had to put his son down again, playing solitaire, waiting for his dead wife to come back. And I mean, he even King even sneaks in an H.P. Lovecraft reference right there near the end that I loved. And here it's just, I don't know, like, it feels like they never really pulled the trigger on any of the truly horrifying elements of this. And there is some creepy stuff, mind you.
And the laugh, Gage's laugh, when he has the scalpel and he's just basically playing hide and go seek with Jed. You have that sense of dread. You know it's coming. You just don't know when. And then when he just slices both Achilles and then just like stalks him, and it's like you feel it. You're like, this can't be good. Also, the fact how both kids died, the contrast. I'm not a big fan of. You in the original, it said more just by seeing that one little shoe bounce across the screen than CGI tanker coming at little girl.
Yeah, I don't want to do my Mr. Wizard routine here, but I know too much about physics to think that poor girl's body would be intact after that.
I will admit, I did like the update, because in the original, the driver's distracted listening to the Ramones song Sheena, and this one, the guy looks down at his cell phone and he's getting a call from, drumroll, Sheena.
Yeah, that was a nice little bit.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. I'm also a pretty big Ramones fan, so there's that. I think my biggest issue with the ending was that I feel like it had, I don't know, maybe it's because they're going after Gage, this infant, who, in the grand scheme, does not really know what's going on. He doesn't have a real sense of dread. He doesn't understand what has happened to his family. And the fact that they're going after him, you just don't feel the weight of it.
I mean, I agree with you. Take 1 minute and imagine that the kids are reversed in that scenario, and it's Ellie just kind of cowering in the backseat of that car.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that scene plays differently as the ending.
Better yet, let's just have him have a pet dog and them stalking the dog, and everybody was more emotionally invested. Because killing a dog is the absolute cardinal sin of any movie. Just ask John Wick.
Since you bring up the dogs, I did get a kick out of Judd telling the story of Cujo at Ellie's birthday party in the background.
That was kind of funny.
Again, there's a couple of major things that I think are just misses for this movie. I don't think they show the descent into, grief-filled madness that goes through Lewis. And again, I don't know if this is writing. I don't know if this was a direction choice. I don't know if they filmed a bunch of it and they just kind of decided, you know what, Jason Clarke can't do this as an actor, so we're better off not having it here.
It just seemed
there's a pretty big internally inconsistent thing from this movie that I need to kind of bring up. In the original book, just because something came back didn't necessarily make it horribly malicious. They weren't the same, very clearly, but they weren't. They weren't all. The story that Judd tells in the movie about his dog going after his mother, that just doesn't happen. The dog just kind of goes about the rest of it, another 8 years of life, and then dies again. It's very specifically stated in the book that the malevolence that comes out of the brought back creature is tied in a very real way to its size and its complexity. So the bull that is brought back goes completely mad. It tears up pastures. It can't be contained. Church, the cat, doesn't actually become malicious until Gage returns, and then it's kind of the will of this entity working in concert with itself. Because if everything is always not just different when it comes back, but actively worse, I really don't understand kind of the logic even of Judd in this instance going through with, well, maybe this time it'll be different. I mean, that's just a bridge too far in terms of character self-denial for me to really go along with.
I think also the thing with Church the cat, if I remember correctly from both the book and the original, he wasn't exactly malicious except to Lewis, because he knew what Lewis had done. In the original book, he's not mean to Ellie when he's brought back. Ellie kicks him out not because he scratches her, but because he reeks. He smells terrible. He's a decomposing cat.
Yeah. No,
so,
it is really only Lewis that he's kind of like, you know what? I don't want to be here, man. I saw the other side, and it wasn't that bad, and you did this to me, so get bent.
And wasn't another instance that he was, this is going to sound kind of off base, is he was neutered in the original, wasn't he? And that caused caused a change in him.
It's been too long since I've read the book. I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Hold on, I'm reading it right now.
It's a good book, so.
Church the cat's testicles. When the family first moved to the new house, Church is not neutered, has a bold, feisty personality. Lewis probably has an aversion to getting Church neutered because he hates the idea of the cat turning lazy and mellow. Yeah.
Stephen King focuses on some pretty weird shit.
Well,
yeah,
I like it because it again, King has Stephen King's two great talents as a storyteller. One is just the ability to scare the crap out of you, but he does that by setting these fantastical things in a world that feels very real and very much like ours. And I think he does that by filling in appropriate details and then letting your mind fill in the rest. If you look at, and there are other writers who go the opposite. They are very vague, so they fill in on kind of a macro sense and then let you populate all the details. King does more of a little bit of an overview and then a lot of detail stuff, and then lets your mind fill in all that stuff in the middle. And it creates, again, a world that is very, very similar to whatever your world is, which means that when he does horrible things, it feels and it fills in, the blanks in your own life in a lot of real respects. So it's a very interesting writing style.
Yeah, it says right here, the personality change that Church undergoes after having his testicles removed foreshadows for the more dramatic change that happens when he's brought back from the dead.
Good to know. And as Alan Arkin once said, don't worry, sooner or later we all lose our balls.
Mine's in my wife's purse.
I hate that movie, but that's a good line. Alright, so is there anything else that you guys wanted to say, good, bad, or otherwise, about the kind of the narrative craft of the movie? Because, again, I don't have there's a lot that, I don't know if it got glossed over, I don't know if this is just badly edited, but I had a lot of high expectations for this movie. I mean, a lot of the promotional materials were suitably creepy, and then it just falls apart in kind of the third act because I don't think they did a good enough job of understanding what changes they made in the first couple of acts and how that was going to impact things later down the line.
I got a question. Maybe I missed out when I was watching it, but did it ever explain the masks?
No.
That was actually something. Rob, didn't you and I talk about this after one of our other shows? We were talking about how bizarre it is that the advertising focuses so much on those kids in the masks doing the funeral procession, and they're in the movie for maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of what got my expectations up, is because the promotional material, you kept seeing these masks, you kept seeing, like, things dealing with it, and then you had no payoff. And I thought maybe I just missed it, but
nope, you didn't miss it. They just didn't have it in there.
Yeah, I thought these kids were going to keep coming up hidden in the back or something. Like, maybe they were kind of the spirits that dwell beyond the cemetery, kind of like we're keeping an eye on you, and we know when you do something stupid, and we're kind of, there is a name. There is a name for that kind of spirit that kind of tries to keep an eye on a screwed up situation. I just cannot think of it.
Or maybe they would. You just see them in the back. I know
like 3 of them, so depending on the mythology you're drawing on, but
like it would have been cool if you just seen them like as background, just like kind of in the background, manipulating things so the events played out like that, like how they were supposed to play out, rather than just totally forgotten. Because I think that would have been really interesting if, like, in the background scenes, like when the truck turns over, you see like if we'll use the first one as an example. If it would just had like one of the kids throw Gage's ball out in the road, knowing that he'll run after it, setting the chain of events into effect. Or this time, kind of along the same lines, like, have them like standing beside the road or something, and the driver get distracted by that and just takes his eye off the road, and then he swerves. Just kind of like they were spirits to set things into motion and make sure that things played out the way they did. Would have been a really cool aspect.
Sure, or maybe they were like the omens of death in a way. They always showed up in the background right before someone died or right before something horrible happened.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been great. What would have been really cool is if you would have seen one in the background when Zelda died.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can use kind of creepy imagery like that, and sadly they don't do any of it. There's a lot of missed opportunities here. It's sad because I was really hoping that this movie was going to be good, and I was sadly let down. 2 of the last 3 Stephen King adaptations have seriously let me down.
Wait, what's the second one?
Don't make me say it.
Say it.
The Dark Tower.
Okay.
No, I was worried for a second you were going to say It Chapter 1 because that movie was awesome. Like,
No,
great.
that's the good one.
That's what I was worried about, and I was getting ready to hate quit like I did on Ronnie Adams about Mel Brooks.
No. I still give Mark crap about his decision about. I maintain he conjured that hurricane in Florida last year just so we wouldn't have to see that movie and talk about it with me. The Damn You Hollywood that is a review of It Chapter 1 is me solo because Mark would rather ride out a hurricane than see that movie.
I was available. You can always hit me up for horror movies, man.
It wound up being kind of it was just there was a weird circumstance around that, so... Look, when he bails on me for Chapter 2, I will absolutely let you know. I'm calling that right now.
Oh, yeah, he's going to bail.
I'm looking forward to Chapter 2. I'm upset we haven't gotten a trailer for it yet.
Ditto. I really liked it, Chapter 1, but again, like of the last 3 Stephen King adaptations, they're 1 out of 3, and as great as that one is, those other 2 are pretty darn bad.
Can I make a confession? Up
Sure.
till I've never seen the original It.
It's on YouTube, man.
Well, my wife won't be in the same house as me to watch it.
Little tip for you: if you want to watch something that goes over the movie in its entirety, there is a reviewer goes by the name of Dina Natali. She does reviews of horror movies and a bunch of other TV shows and stuff. She's awesome. She does her show's called The Film Den. She did the original It in a 4-part series that covers nearly the whole thing. You know, if you want to just watch that in an afternoon or something, that will get you through all the points of the movie if you don't want to actually sit down or you can't actually sit down and watch the actual movie.
Well, I mean, I could sit down. I think it's the fact that my wife relates watching that to her, like, chronic fear of clowns.
Oh, well, no wonder if you're married to someone who's scared of clowns.
Yeah, Tim Curry's Pennywise is legit.
Yeah, I'm not scared of clowns at all, but I loved the guy who played Pennywise in the new movie. But Tim Curry's Pennywise is iconic. No question.
And I really liked Skarsgård's Pennywise, especially the eye thing that apparently was not CGI'd. He just taught himself to do it.
Yeah, apparently he's got the eye and he can unfocus it.
That is awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, which is even creepier.
That makes me like it even more now.
You know, I got to ask you guys, because every time I start talking to horror fans about this movie, I always ask this question. In It Chapter 1, what was the scariest moment for you? The moment where you dropped your popcorn, where you actually jumped out of your seat? What was the moment that you just went, oh, shit?
When it ended. I was really pissed off when it ended.
I was thinking more like the chick who cut the chick in the painting, or the headless kid from the Easter egg hunt, or when Pennywise jumps out of the projector.
I'm torn on this.
The projector did get me.
My sister and I saw when we saw that movie, the projector scene. She and I both jumped out of our seats in the theater. It just scared us so bad.
I don't think it ever got me with one of those kind of jump scare-ish kind of things. I actually had those 2 moments that kind of, for whatever reasons, kind of pushed a few of my horror buttons. One of them, the headless kid chasing. I forget chasing haystacks through the archives of the library.
Isn't that Ben?
It might be Ben. Yeah, haystacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Anyway, yeah, when he gets chased through there, that's pretty up there. The other's a weird one because, this might just be me, but because I know the clown dance gets a bad rap as being just kind of a weird moment. But when he comes out of that and he, kind of reiterates the "we all float down here" line, and then she winds up kind of staring off after looking into the deadlights, and when the other kids come in and they see this tower of destruction of bodies, and you do see these other bodies just literally floating around it in orbit. Again, I don't know what it is about that kind of got me a little bit, but giving full context to the "we all float down here" bit, yeah, full marks for that one, because while it's a creepy line, they made it creepier by actually showing what it's about, so...
I thought the same thing. I mean, the whole "you'll float down here" from the original, I never really understood, except for a play on the line. George says, "Will my boat float down there?" But then you're like, well, oh my God, you actually have floating people.
Which is like, pretty freaky.
Oh God, yeah, it's terrifying.
What was your favorite part that got you, like, and mine's going to be the weird one, is mine's when he's got the severed arm waving.
Oh, when the bullies are beating up, I think his name's Mike. And
yeah.
He's Pennywise just kind of hidden in the bushes.
And he's got the severed arm and he waves. And you're like, that's my favorite part. I was like, that is awesome. That made my day.
That was a good one. Because I've got kind of a thing for just the eeriness of it, when Henry Bowers gets his knife out and is trying to carve up, and again I forget the kid's name, and there's that car of adults that just drives by and very pointedly doesn't look.
Yeah, they tried to play with racism.
No. This was the fat kid, not the black kid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
And I love that because a big part of the town of Derry was just that no one's willing to acknowledge what's wrong, that Pennywise just kind of that the influence of the creature just, it can't hide it in the sense that, oh no, sure, there was never a kid there that I just horribly dismembered, but it's just enough to make you look away when terrible things are happening, and just that the adults don't want to see elements of what's going on, and that they can't process this, the supernatural aspects of it, so they just don't look. And that's why that's why only the kids have the ability to do anything about it.
I think the thing that I enjoy the most, and again, this is going to sound weird, there's that weird TV show that all the adults are watching in the background. It's got the woman in the church dress and those little kids. And early on, you hear, I think it's Eddie's mother watching, and you actually hear them say something like, yeah, go down to the sewers, it's fun to play. And that scene when Henry gets his knife back, and they actually turn and start saying, make it a great day, Henry, kill them all, kill him. I don't know why, but I just kind of like that idea that Pennywise has been subtly influencing through that. It wasn't just direct. I mean, yeah, he goes direct when he confronts Henry when he's lost his mind, but I just kind of the idea that this was sort of a channel for no pun intended, for Pennywise to kind of, hell, it wouldn't even surprise me if he was purposely manipulating, the source is a great place to play, to try to get more kids down there.
Yeah.
And of course the adults don't notice that, but I really like that. It's a very subtle little detail, and I really like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really great moment. All right, now that we brought ourselves back up, I do not have the other sound bites for this. My apologies, everyone, but let's go ahead and talk about the money for Pet Sematary. It's financially successful on a budget of $21 million as of this recording. It has $96.2 million worldwide, so it's not breaking any records or anything, but it is profitable, and I don't know that, I mean, it didn't win its opening weekend. That would have been Shazam. I think it finished second, but then started dropping pretty hard. It fell to fourth in the second weekend.
It's like everybody went to see it opening weekend, realized how horrible it was, didn't want their friends being pissed off at them for suggesting it.
Yeah, something kind of like that. It's it's
Because it took
profitable,
a steep
but
decline.
yeah, this one's not breaking the bank for. Jeez, who did this? Come on. Paramount distributed. It was actually produced by De Bonaventura. So, oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. There is one other good thing about this movie, and I'm going to exclude the song at the end from this praise. The music for Pet Sematary is quite good. And that should come as no surprise considering Christopher Young scored this.
Yeah, it had a pretty solid soundtrack.
And for those unaware of Christopher Young and some of the great things he's done, I'm always happy to see his name because he scored two of my favorite horror movies ever in both Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2.
I've never seen any of the Hellraiser movies.
So, yeah, he's done a lot of work, and he's a solid hand when it comes to this, and he has a good feel for, again, especially horror. So I did want to bring that up specifically because the music in this is really good. So, and I don't think Christopher Young gets enough credit for the music he adds to horror movies generally, and just wanted to give him some props for that. All right, on the year. Let's see how we are financially for the year, which none of this is going to matter in 2 weeks, but for the moment.
In a week. I mean, we're under a week.
Yeah.
We're like days away.
Yeah. At the moment, your top 10, Captain Marvel is the highest grossing film of 2019 with a little over $1 billion, 1.091 billion specifically. The Wandering Earth hit number 2 with 699 million. This is, as Mark would say, one of those Chinese Chinaman films. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World sits at 3, 514 million. Alita Battle Angel still plugging along at 4 with 403 million. Crazy Alien, 327 million. Shazam at number 6 right now, 323 million. Dumbo at 7, Pegasus at 8, Glass at 9, and Us at 10. And yeah, next week this is all getting blown up. Because Endgame cometh. And that thing's tracking for something like $1 billion opening worldwide.
The pre-sold ticket sales are already dwarfing anything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Robert, I know you and I got our early ticket sales. Jason, have you bought your ticket?
Nah, we're buying it Thursday. We haven't decided if we're going to see it, which theater we're going to see it in, because we've got plenty of options. Because my Saturday this week is going to be a pretty big deal. Me and the wife are actually going to see Endgame together. As soon as we get out in, we're meeting two of our best friends for dinner at the new German restaurant that's here in Huntington. And then as soon as we get done with that, we're doing an escape room. So we're kind of big. We're just kind of trying to figure out. It's on 8 theaters within 10 minutes of us. So we're just kind of figuring out if we want to see 3D and which time slot we want. Like in one theater, it is like every 30 minutes. They've got it on, I think, 6 screens, and every 30 minutes a new one starts, starting at like 11 a.m. and going up.
Some news reports have said that certain theaters are actually going to be staying open all night, and they're offering like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. showings.
Hey,
if they can sell the tickets. The theater I used to work at, we would do that. My best friend was general manager. This was back in the old days when there was projection reels. I was the head projectionist there, and I would put the films together. We would as long as people bought tickets for, we were in, I can't remember what movie it was. I think it might have been one of the X-Men movies. We were in it. The last one let out at 4 a.m. And it was pretty insane. I mean, we had, I think the midnight, the 1 a.m., and the 1:30 all sold out that night. And it was crazy. And then we had a guy call and want to buy 10 tickets for if we would do a 6 a.m. show for him. Of course, I slept in the projection booth and said, yeah, as long as you pay me under the table in cash, I'll run it.
For those interested in this week, I believe, if memory serves, The Curse of La Llorona, which is one of those Conjuring spinoffs, took number 1, Shazam number 2. Breakthrough, which I haven't seen anything about. I don't know anything about that at number 3. Captain Marvel fell to number 4. Oh, sorry. Captain Marvel rose to number 4. It was down at 6 the week before. Little, Dumbo, Pet Sematary, Us, The Missing Link, still hanging around at 9. Hellboy dropped like a rock. That thing opened at number 3 and fell all the way to number 10.
Ouch.
That Breakthrough movie, it's going to do good simply because it's a Christian-based movie, and I don't know if it's like this. I highly doubt it's anywhere like this for you guys. But where I'm from, churches will go and rent out theaters and buy every single ticket for one of these showings type movies. And it's kind of big, so I think that you have a strong base of churches doing that, or as the Washington likes to call them, Easter worshipers. Ugh. That will rent out a theater. So I think that will help it money wise.
Yeah,
living in the Bible Belt here, we got churches that will they'll rent out the entire theater, and then they'll tell their congregation, hey, we bought these tickets. Who wants to go see this movie with us? They've done that for every single Pure Flix.
Yeah, not a thing that we do, apparently. For those of you who don't know, we in this instance being LDS people, because I live in a deeply religious part of the country, but we don't do that, so.
LDS doesn't believe in having fun.
That's not true.
Example A, Robert Winfree.
Look, hold on. I've said this about many things, many parts of my life, that I do not represent the norms in anything. I am the statistical outlier of all statistical outliers.
Man, you didn't know you didn't know what Fraggle Rock was. That crushed my soul.
Sorry, I read books. I didn't watch Fraggle Rock.
How old are you, Robert?
33.
No excuse. You and I are almost the same age. You should.
Look, I spent 5 years of my early teenage life completely without television, barely with internet access. I didn't watch a lot of television even before that when I was a small kid, or I watched reruns of stuff my parents liked, or I watched movies with them, or I was in my own head. I didn't watch a lot of the crappy, and let me be clear, I do have some nostalgia for elements of this, but boy was there a lot of crap that was aimed at people of my age at the time. I mean, if I dug through my
conversations.
Look, if I dug through the recesses of my brain, I might recall the Fraggle Rock theme song. I could probably fish up a few memories of watching SWAT Cats or the Gummy Bears animated thing. I'm not pretending none of these things ever happened, but they didn't have a substantive impact on my development.
I now have the Gummy Bears theme in my head.
Bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Now I'm trying to clear it by singing the Darkwing Duck anthem in my head.
See, I've still got Fraggle Rock stuck in my head. Down to Fraggle Rock, clap, clap.
I introduced my daughter to that, and she looked at me and went, "Did you really enjoy this?" And I said, "Yeah."
I watched reruns of the original Muppet Show. Okay, that's what I watched. If I wanted to watch stuff like that.
Alexa, Robert is Uncle Traveling Matt.
So I just look. I don't have the same cultural language that a lot of people of my generation do. Hey, such is my life. I can live with it. So the point being, when you say that LDS people don't have a lot of fun, I don't have a lot of fun. I'm fairly miserable. I'm not the average. Look, the average LDS person my age has been married for 8 years and has at least 3 kids. And I'm neither married. I am both childless and unmarried. And not only unmarried, have never been married. I am an outlier. I absolutely am. So don't judge. So again, just don't point at me and say, but this is the Mormon I know. And he's so.
But Robert, in your defense, you're our special little flower here at the Rattling
Aren't I just so special?
You are.
You know what happens to special little flowers, right? They get eaten.
Not the helmet and elbow pads kind of special. You're unique.
Yeah, so's a busted fork. You throw it away and repurpose it.
Well...
Are you saying we should throw you away and replace you?
No, there was nobody that can replace Robert, because then Mark would actually regain his happiness and sanity, and we just can't have that.
Yeah, we need your trollishness to balance out Patrick's anger.
Look, Mark's tried. No one else will put up with him. Look, no one else will do what I do for the money that I do it for.
I'll put it to you this way. Mark has pitched the idea that me and Robert do a show together to cover horror movies just so he gets a break.
Mark would rather go see Whitesnake in concert than be here and talk with us, so...
And how he pitched it was, you and Robert really like horror movies. You should do that and stuff. I was like, okay, why? Because you don't like horror movies? Oh, it's not that. I just think it would be really good if you two did a show together.
No, this totally has nothing to do with me trying to get away from doing stuff with... all right, moving on. So anyway, that's the money as far as this movie goes. It's a perfectly fine return on investment for all parties concerned. So, good for them. There's very few movies I actively root to lose money, and I will never really root for a horror movie to lose money unless it is just absolutely god-awful. And this is bad, but I don't think it's that. The whole world changes next week. There is literally only one movie coming out. That's this Friday, Avengers Endgame, baby. If I have to duck out of watching Critical Role early to make sure I make my showing, I'm going to, so... yeah, and that's coming. The week after that will be a lot of nothing. There's not even really a counter-programming attempt apart from a comedy starring Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron called Long Shot, and then your Boy We're All So Special and Boy That Just Makes Us So Great movie Ugly Dolls, which just, if I may bring back a colloquialism from my youth, gag me with a spoon.
Hey, I lived through them days.
You know what? I actually would have been interested in Ugly Dolls if it wasn't completely cast with pop stars as the voice actors. Yeah,
I have never heard it.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm not paying money to listen to Kelly Clarkson, Nick Jonas, and Pitbull.
Mr. Worldwide.
Gabriel Iglesias and Wanda Sykes. Someone called Charlie XCX.
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
That's not a name. That's a series of random letters.
I only know who that is because I watched the YouTube channel Todd in the Shadows, and I know that Charlie XCX has guest starred on in several pop songs. I haven't actually heard anything this person has done solo, but they're apparently a good guest artist for certain songs. You know what I mean?
No, but I mean, sort of. I don't know. It's
now I'm going to ruin your day. You could just think of Pitbull's remake of Africa.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Everybody complaining when Weezer did Africa as a remake. They're like, it's so boring. They just sang the same song. And then that one came out. I'm like, okay, everyone retract whatever you said about Weezer.
The week after, there's I don't know why my computer's rendering a random string of code for that, but okay. There's a few things. The Tolkien biopic is out.
Detective Pikachu.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Detective Pikachu's out that weekend.
I think your dog's barking in the background. I can't hear you.
Hey, Robert, you know what figure I just raised?
Okay, no, now you're back. So, again, the week after that will be John Wick Chapter 3, which we will be reviewing. The week after that is Aladdin, followed by Godzilla. So, again, we're well and truly into the summer over the next couple of weeks. So, after Endgame decimates the financial landscape of cinema for a few weeks.
How much of a gap do you think it's going to be between one and two?
A lot of that's going to depend on Star Wars, quite frankly. Because
I'm just talking about after Endgame opens, just like when it takes number one, because it's probably going to take number one overall by the second weekend.
So you're saying what's going to be the income difference between Endgame and whatever takes the number 2 spot?
Yeah. Do you think you're going to be able to add up the 2 through 10 and come up with Endgame?
No. You add up 2 through 10, you might get half of Endgame. Like, this movie is going to get so big.
I hear it's emotional.
That's what I've heard.
Everyone says, bring tissues.
Apparently there's also an epic fisting scene involving Cap and Bucky.
Okay, why did you... We did have Mark on, and you had to go there.
No, not a joke. Someone actually tweeted that after they saw it. So take that for whatever it's worth.
Quit reading Mark's Twitter.
It wasn't Mark. Mark's Twitter is a wasteland. I follow him as a courtesy, not because of his content. So that's where we stand. Again, that's where we stand year to date, and let's me fire up the old Rotten Tomatoes here, and let's have a look at what, if anything. Pet Sematary sits currently at 58% overall for official critics. Audiences are even worse at only 40%. Let's have a look here. Man. Even some of these, like, fresh reviews are just...
brutal.
Well, okay,
can
let's
you
take...
find one good review?
Oh, no, there's a few. There's a few here. There's a few from, like, top critics that are on the positive side. For example, Alison Wilmore of BuzzFeed. Why is BuzzFeed atop anything? Pet Sematary is a fable fueled by a sense of culpability for things that aren't always explained. Which I'm not entirely sure qualifies as a coherent sentence.
Yeah,
I think she was having a stroke.
I mean, again, like, you work for BuzzFeed, so the bar is pretty low, I get it, but man.
I mean, like, BuzzFeed's a level below Rattleage Broadcasting, isn't it?
I mean, they have a much higher income than us, but I take, look, if nothing else, the critical destruction we do here every week has made me realize how bad so many of these people are at their jobs. And I'll put what we do here up against what the majority of them do all the time. No, that's largely true.
It's kind of hard actually to find. I was going to say, it's kind of hard to find something really overly critical of Pet Sematary because it really is a meh movie. It's not good, but compared to some of the horrible movies we've been watching before, or in recent memory, it's not that bad. So what can you really say about a movie that just makes you go, meh?
Yeah, the vast majority of these are like 3 out of 5 B ratings kind of thing, and I don't disagree with that by and large.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got a question. You
All
know,
right.
we're all similar to age, me being the elder statesman, but we kind of gravitated toward growing up with the same kind of genre of horror movie. Do you think that this horror movie for this we're more critical because we were spoiled growing up with horror movies, with some great horror movies, and this generation of horror movies considers this great, and we're objectively criticizing it because we were spoiled with what we grew up to know as a horror movie.
You know, I'm going to disagree solely on what we just talked about earlier about It Chapter 1. Most of us grew up watching the original It. That was, you know, a huge part. I didn't see it as a kid, but I knew a ton of people who saw it. I have a ton of friends who say that was their very first horror movie they ever saw. And we just Pet Sematary, Pet Sematary remake is so boring that we ended up talking about It Chapter 1 instead.
Yeah,
we did a nice little review of it.
It's good. So
I'm just saying that what passes at today's standards as a horror movie, because I'm not really, I mean, excluding It, which we'll see the continuation. Like, I can't really think of like really great horror movies that have came out. You got some hits and misses, more misses than you do hits. But
do you
what's
just want a
being
list
made,
of some decent horror movies that I could give you that you might not have seen yet?
possibly.
I really liked
I'm all
Hereditary.
I have yet to see. It's on my
I
queue.
thought Toni Collette not getting nominated for an Oscar for that performance was just the latest instance of the Academy's bias against the genre. Hereditary is really good.
I would say my thing with Hereditary, not that Toni Collette wasn't amazing. The cinematography on that movie deserved all of the awards. How well they shot to mimic the doll houses that she built, or the miniatures, whatever you want to call them. I was blown away by how brilliant that was. Get Out. That's a great horror movie from recent years.
I liked Get Out, but then I watched Us, and it jaded me to Get Out. It was like, I thought Get Out was a good horror movie, but of course, I'm just weird in this. I figure stuff out, and I was the best part of
anyone
that
who even remotely thinks about the setup for Us knows the ending.
Yeah, because I mean, it's the same. It goes along with the same premise and the same kind of twist that Get Out had. You know, it's kind of trying to shock you and mislead you, but when in reality, about halfway through the movie, you figure it out.
I mean, A Quiet Place is good.
That was very good.
I did like A Quiet Place. I liked.
This might be a bit of an odd one because I still haven't seen it yet. But if you're a fan of Lovecraft's writing, apparently Annihilation is, which is not based on Lovecraft specifically, but it's probably the best Lovecraftian style film that has come out in the last several years since some enterprising people did a 1920s style silent film adaptation of Call of Cthulhu.
Is that one the one where they go out and they cross into like some utopia wonderland, and it's this woman's science team because her husband's dying?
It's not a utopian wonderland, and again, I was a little off-put by some of the material that, and I read one of the books, because that's part of a trilogy, and I read one of them out of order, and it's deeply, needlessly symbolic and, deep within itself, but apparently, but enough people I know have said enough positive things about it that I'll vouch for Annihilation.
How do you guys feel about the remake of Child's Play?
I was never a big Child's Play fan to begin with.
I am definitely intrigued. I love that they cast Mark Hamill as Chucky. I'm totally fine with that. For the record, though, we talk about all the horror movies that are out nowadays that suck, and there are a lot of really bad horror movies. But then you look at the horror movies that came out back when we were kids, and yeah, you have iconic ones, but there's a lot of crappy ones too.
Horror is always kind of a genre.
It was oversaturated.
Horror is just always kind of a we're going to throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, here, I picked this up. The year 1984. You got Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. That same year, we also had Children of the Corn, Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, The Company of Wolves, The Initiation, Night of the Comet, Razorback, The Toxic Avenger, Don't Open Till Christmas, Monster Dog, Ladder University, Dreamscape, Rat, Scream for Help, Blood Theater, Too Scared to Scream. You guys heard of half of these?
Sadly, yes. There's a lot of that that's just out and out crap, and there's a bit of it that's so bad it's enjoyable.
Well, that's what I like to think about when people say, back then horror movies were good. No, back then there were so many bad horror movies. There were bad horror movies. Now there were bad horror movies then. Yes. Now and then we look back with the more rose-colored, and you know what? I'll stop talking.
Now I'll divulge something that you'll find very entertaining and hilarious. My name is Jason. Of course, the iconic Jason Voorhees. I have a brother that is named Freddie, and I have a giant 6'4" deaf mute cousin named Michael.
Huh.
No shit.
Wow.
My brother was born
and
in
you live in West
71.
Virginia?
My brother was born in 71. I was born in 78, and my cousin Michael was born in 75.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. All right. I think that's going to go ahead and get us out of here for this one, unless anyone else has anything that they'd like to add about the movie.
I think I said it. We ended up talking about other scary movies.
Yeah.
It was so entertaining that we went down rabbit holes for other scary movies.
So entertaining. We're basically standing here going, so when's the trailer for It Chapter 2 coming out?
Yeah, seriously. Hurry up. We want that movie.
Uh-huh. It's coming out in September, actually. I thought we'd have a trailer by now.
You'd think so, but then again, they might just do a blitz campaign for the advertisement, which can work.
Is there a big, sci-fi horror movie coming out anytime soon?
Let me have a look.
Godzilla. I bet it's attached to. I bet we get a teaser attached to Godzilla.
You know what? Actually, that wouldn't surprise me.
I think that's the most. I think that's the most high profile. There's another horror movie coming out called Ma.
Oh, the Octavia Spencer film. Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be one in front of that. Then we have. Dark Phoenix is going to be horror, but for all the wrong reasons. Just horrible.
Well said.
The best thing about that is I get to see the chick from Game of Thrones that I just started watching.
If we don't get one for Godzilla, it'll probably be in front of Child's Play.
When's Child's Play out?
Yeah.
Child's Play is released on June 21st, is the date currently set for it.
That soon? Really?
Yeah, I thought it was October. I thought it was more toward Halloween. Wow.
That's the information I have in front of me.
Because I don't understand why you would release... the best time... You usually get your horror movies either early in the year around February, which is a dead zone, or right around late September, October to capitalize on the Halloween.
Yeah, usually
there's a few coming out in the summer to just kind of counter-program some of the other big, flashy blockbusters. The new Annabelle movie comes out end of June. That comedy horror with Bill Murray and Adam Driver comes out in June.
Oh, I want to see that.
I haven't seen.
I got a soft spot for Jim Jarmusch. Ever since I met him once and he told me that he could eat an onion without crying that was raw. Turned out he was lying, but he was just sad that this was the last time we'd ever meet. And with that very, very deep cut for a Simpsons reference out of the way.
Wasn't even that good of a Simpsons episode.
It's not, but it's a funny moment. Jim Jarmusch then snapping to fade himself out of existence is funny. No, I don't reference the episode apart from Jim Jarmusch showing up. And Homer randomly having a... I love that whole scene because Homer's like, it's always been my dream to meet Jim Jarmusch, and then ask him who he is. Oh, he's right over there. Oh, hey, Jim Jarmusch. Who are you? And I keep trying to answer that with each one of my films. Oh, you're a filmmaker, are you? Well, that's not all I can do. Oh, yeah, what else can you do? I can eat an onion without crying. Homer then pulls an onion out of his pocket. Prove it.
You know, I want to ask you guys something, since we're all pretty big horror movie fans. There is something that I remember seeing a while ago that I have never understood. And I'm hoping you guys can help me. Have you guys seen the movie Eraserhead?
Ooh.
It's been a while.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a deep cut. But it's been a while.
There was, on my way to a convention, the car in front of me had a bumper sticker that said, "The Eraserhead baby is my co-pilot." It's been almost a year. It came out the other day because I was with my sister. We were talking about the convention, and when we brought up that bumper sticker, she and I are both big horror movie fans. Neither of us got it, and I've just realized that, yeah, you guys know horror movies. Do you get it? Because I don't get it.
I'm not grasping it. It's funny, but I'm not getting the reference. Robert would probably, the Human Encyclopedia would probably get a reference before I would.
I mean, two things about this. One, Eraserhead is a very, very surrealistic movie to begin with, for those of you who haven't seen it. Two, it's just kind of a crappy... Not crappy. It's just kind of, a jokey meme to say that, the whatever is my co-pilot.
Well, I've seen other bumper stickers that have said so-and-so is my co-pilot. Yeah, I think it started with the Jesus is my co-pilot.
It started with Jesus is my co-pilot, and then it's just kind of branched out from there into whatever becomes my co-pilot. So, I mean, I think there's probably one in my immediate vicinity I could find that, Cthulhu is my co-pilot kind of thing. So, I think it's just kind of a fan of Eraserhead that found one of those or had them made. More than a specific reference to something about the Eraserhead baby, being an actual kind of pilot.
Well, I figure I obviously know it's not a real co-pilot thing. Yeah, it's actually kind of hilarious. I love horror movies. Eraserhead is a movie I can't watch.
It's very surrealistic and very weird.
Yeah, right up there with Andalusian Dog. There are certain films that you see parts of once and you're like, okay, we're shoving that away and we are never going to discuss it again.
I found the sticker. I found the bumper sticker. You can buy it for $2.50. Or you could buy the Eraserhead baby plush replica for $15.
Look, if all you want is a bunch of cotton stuffed into a roughly rectangular pink shape, you don't need to spend $15 on it.
It looks like the chest burster from Alien wrapped in gauze.
Yeah, frankly, the chest burst is a little bit more cuddly.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say I'd rather have a stuffed chest burster than I would that.
Yeah, that is just disturbing. Why did I look that up?
It's a again. If you go in for the surrealist stuff, it's a disturbing movie. But no, I don't think I could come up with a more specific reference than just or some specific joke that they're going for with it. So that's all I got.
For the record, did either of you get my reference from Andalusian Dog?
No, I did not.
It's a surreal film that nearly everyone who takes a film class has to take or has to watch, which includes a scene of a razor and an eyeball. And I'm not going to say anything else.
Don't.
No,
okay.
Sorry,
I was about to say.
5:30 and I really don't like it right now.
I was about to say, if we want to go down the road of horrible movies that have horrible things like that in them, there's movies I could name that I'm not going to name because I'm worried that someone who hasn't seen them might hear me name them and then go out and watch them.
The two disgusting, totally mess with my head is Original Hostel, the eyeball.
Not a fan of that. I don't mind blood and gore, but I don't like torture porn. You know,
yeah.
Eli Roth has come quite far as a director, but that was not one of his best.
And, well, I'll make two more ever. The shaving scene in Cabin in the Woods.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And the razor blade from Evil Dead.
That's a pretty good one too, actually. No,
all three of those really disturb me watching.
I mean,
I don't.
Look, again, if we want to go down the road of, just disturbing imagery, even in just terrible movies, I've seen movies or parts of movies that I'm just not going to. Again, I'm just not going to reference them because I don't want someone listening to say, maybe.
You hate for somebody to listen to the Pet Sematary review that we gave up on an hour ago and look up something you're talking about.
I mean, look, I can't recommend a Serbian film, for example, and for the love of God, do not watch it.
No.
But that has some disturbing stuff in it.
And
look, let me be clear about this. That's not my big gun in that. Look, again, if that's like I got my quiver of, horror movies that just have stuff in them that you desperately wish you could unsee, a Serbian film is not my big gun. I'm just going to leave it at that. And you're better off not knowing what I know.
About to say, one of my favorite reviewers, when Serbian film came out, he named it the #1 worst movie of the year. He said, here's my argument. No other movie is a Serbian film.
Oh, what's that one movie I'm thinking of? They just remade it. It was basically, it was a movie that was made in like the 70s.
I Spit on Your Grave?
No.
It
was something Holocaust. And they remade it.
Holocaust.
Oh, yeah, no. Eli Roth did a quasi-remake of that with, I think it was Green Emerald something or other?
It was the Green... the Green Inferno.
Both
of those were kind of disturbing.
Again, I really just have to mention that if we want to go down disturbing, I got stuff I got stuff. That's all I'm going to say, and I'm not going to pull out because again, I think that
what bothers me is if you're disturbed, that means it's bad.
I mean, again, I can look on, a Serbian film and go, you know what, that is not the most disturbing thing I have ever seen. And a Serbian film is absolutely screwed up.
Now,
don't you love that our listeners probably came on to listen to us talk about Pet Sematary, and this is like, the fourth time we've gotten distracted?
Yeah. Sorry, guys, but there's just not a lot to talk about there.
There's things besides Pet Sematary.
All right, let's go ahead and close up shop then. So, Jason, what would you like to plug? Where can people find you?
Um, usually you can find me either the next time you can find me here on the Rad Ledger Broadcast Network is I'll be back for Damn You Hollywood, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Outside of that, you can look over and find me on the W2M network, where I'm part of the roundtable of the kickoff. We're getting ready to do a NFL draft preview, as the draft is this week. I won't be partaking in it due to I have to be an adult and work, and I don't get to play. Tonight was my night of playing with getting out of the house and playing with my friends. But you can shoot over and do that. I will be joining the guys again for the post-draft wrap-up, where we discuss our take on our favorite teams and everything, and how the NFL draft played out, opposed to how we thought it would be. Then we will be back in full swing with the kickoff, college and NFL previews, starting the first week of August. And if you really want to, go in the archives, look up source material about the Scooby-Doo apocalypse. I hear that the 3 people that took part in that are really amazing.
All right, I just have to point out before I go to Alexis, there's apparently a video of Nicolas Cage angrily singing Purple Rain at a karaoke bar that's floating around the internet now.
Oh, awesome.
So, Alexis, where can people find you?
Yeah, we could have talked about that instead of Pet Sematary. Anyway, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and reluctantly Twitter. We're going to be appearing at Cape Comic-Con and OzCon. Cape Comic-Con's in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. OzCon is in West Plains, Missouri. Actually going to be kind of interesting. I will be returning later this week for us to do our MCU recap over Phase 3 and a little bit talking about Endgame. And I will be doing it while I am driving back to my hotel, because I, being the idiot that I am, forgot to get a hotel close to the convention. Everything was stupidly expensive, so I will be making a 45-minute commute. So I'm warning you in advance, while we're talking, you're going to hear Siri say, "Take a left ahead," repeatedly.
Well, it's better than dogs barking.
Ow, Eddie, I think you just got insulted, pal.
No, I love Eddie's cameos. Trust me, I do. Between Eddie, Brody, and Robert, Mark needs a dog just so it can just pop in every so often.
Mark has a son who occasionally shows up on the podcast. He doesn't need a dog.
Is it like Jesse? Jesse's kids just show up?
It's not as so. I don't hate Mark or his kids or anything, and again, we all roll with the punches here on this stuff because we do, because we appreciate each other. But yeah, Jonas would show up. Jonas has shown up on a couple of podcasts. Lily has as well.
Okay, I want to point this out. I love Mark to death, but can you guys get him a cup of coffee before you record? Him falling asleep is I don't know who's fell asleep on podcasts more, him or me. And the fact that he just starts snoring and then denies falling asleep is the greatest thing ever. He slept for a good 30 minutes during the last Marvel recap. And you guys just played it off, and then he woke, and it was perfect. He woke up and picked up right where you guys were. And I was like, and Mark's been asleep for 30 minutes, but he at least knew what they was talking about.
You see, I asked if he was sleeping the first time. I was told he was just breathing heavily.
No, he was sound asleep. And
look, I can neither confirm nor deny the speculation of Jason Teasley. And I say that for the sake of my contract.
But no, Rob, you know I'm telling the truth. One time I was like, wait, is he asleep? And you came and said, no, he's not asleep.
Well,
I'll take Mark's word for it if he says he wasn't asleep, because he generally will own up to it if he does, in fact, fall asleep on a podcast.
Well, when he's snoring and you can't hear you two, it's kind of obvious. And like you know, Mark's not making like little jabs at Robert for 30 minutes. When Robert and Mark get along for an extended period of time, it's usually because Mark's asleep.
Or I forgot to unmute my mic, which has also happened in the past. All right. As for myself, you can find me this coming Friday. We will be recording the last of our series, of our retrospective of the MCU, our countdown to Endgame. This will be Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, Phase 3 doesn't technically end until Spider-Man Far From Home, apparently, for some reason.
I don't get why they're doing that. I mean,
I thought this was the end of Phase 3.
I don't know.
Spider picked up Phase 4.
I don't know for sure, but we'll see. Look, Far From Home might, in their post-credit scene, introduce the next major wave of cosmic threats that they're going to be dealing with, so that might be why they're kind of saying that.
There's no post-credit scene. That has been confirmed.
Oh.
You mean, well, you said there was no post. You were saying post from Far From Home. They have confirmed there's no post-credit scene in Endgame. They have yet to say anything about Far From Home.
Which I really think was a mistake. Why? I don't understand why they went ahead and greenlit like Black Panther 2, Far From Home, and all that, knowing that all the people that they're promoting got dusted.
Yeah, that was the one thing about the end of Infinity War that just kind of took me out of the movie was, oh, hey, look, he killed half the population, and oh, conveniently, it's the half that we all know is coming back.
I am able to go into my childlike wonder stage, even though I know they're coming back. I mean, I know, obviously, Marvel is not stupid enough to get rid of T'Challa, especially after Black Panther got its Oscar nomination. But I am just going to go into my little bit of optimistic and naive tango. I wonder what's going to happen, because you know why? I actually want to enjoy myself.
All right.
They dusted Spider-Man, and my immediate thought was, he's literally got a sequel announced. And then, 3 weeks later, or it wasn't even that long later that they actually confirmed, no, it's not set in the interim between Civil War and Infinity War. It's genuinely after Endgame.
See, it would have held more if they would have dusted some of the originals sprinkled in, but all the originals are still around.
Well, I mean, on the plus side, and this is my take on this, I now know that anyone who dies in Endgame is at least staying dead. Because they're not going to be able to pull that off twice. So anyway, you can listen to our discussion of all that and more from Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Thursday. We will also talk, I think, a little bit about Endgame. All of us, Mark, myself, and Alexis, will have seen it by then, so we'll see. Again, some of that will depend on how the movie itself goes. It might just be... It might be something that we wind up leaving for the Damn You Hollywood on Tuesday, when we review Avengers Endgame, which will be...
Don't make me wait. Don't make me not listen to you guys until I see the movie. Because usually I listen to you guys on Friday when I'm work bored.
Well, again, we'll see. Again, if we do wind up talking about it, I will make sure everyone knows ahead that there are spoilers. So.
Well, then how am I going to get through my Friday without listening to you guys? Okay.
I don't know.
Go look up an older show. There's a great one of me and Mark talking about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, season 1. Plug.
My wife would actually like that. She is all about. She has tried to convince me to spend $200 on the 8 issues first run that she found on eBay.
For the record, Mark and I will be talking about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Season 2 coming up here pretty soon on TV Party tonight, along with She-Ra and the Princess of Power Season 2, which I got to go binge after I get back from Cape Girardeau next week. After I go see Endgame probably for the second time, because I'm actually going out of town alone, and I know my husband wants to see it, so I will be seeing it twice.
Yeah, I'm going to try and sneak in a second viewing before Damn You Hollywood, because if it's a big movie like this, I try to see it twice, just because I usually get a different perspective the second time. And the second time I can generally see it without a completely invested screaming audience, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Saturday, you can find me in the MMA zone of 411 Mania. I will be covering, and this card has been bounced around so much. It started life as UFC on ESPN 3. Now, apparently, because of the main event being shifted around so much, it's now UFC on ESPN Plus 8, I want to say. So there's some weirdness about that, but there's some good fights on that card, and you can hear Jeff and I break down... Jeff and me in that instance, my apologies. You can hear Jeff and me break down that card on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, which was recorded last Sunday, and this coming Sunday we'll have another one of those, reviewing that event and previewing Fight Night. It's either 150 or 151, and it's UFC on ESPN Plus 8 or UFC on ESPN Plus 9, depending on the nomenclature they want to go with, what sort of numerology. And that's not the worst card in the world. Actually, one of those fights is going to have to fall off because Walt Harris got popped for a drug test failure. Anyway, the main event's good. It's Ally Quinta and Donald Cerrone, so that'll be fun. You can hear us preview all of that. And again, the big thing next week, Damn You Hollywood will be looking at Avengers Endgame, and knowing Mark's desire for synergy, everyone do the hand motion, synergy, there will be a lot of Avengers-related material all week. I believe there's Avengers Forever on source material. And again, there's Damn You Hollywood, and then I don't know what the Metal Hammer of Doom is doing, but they're doing their thing. So on that note, thank you everyone for listening. On behalf of Jason and Alexis, I am Robert. Hopefully you'll be back here next week. We apologize for the amount of rabbit holes we went down, but this movie. Stay safe out there, and please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.
Are you looking for a truly unique experience this weekend? Get away to Orlando for our uniquely eventful spring and discover all the ways you can make the most of every moment. From unforgettable concerts to one-of-a-kind festivals to the debut of epic new rides and attractions, you'll find something for everyone. And Visit Orlando is your guide to enjoying all the season has to offer. To start planning your uniquely eventful spring, head to visitorlando.com today.
This is firefighter Rafael Porriette for Firehouse Subs. Introducing new Firehouse Pairs. Pair your favorite small sub with a signature side, like the awesome 5-cheese mac and cheese. And remember, a portion of every purchase at Firehouse Subs goes towards helping first responders. Firehouse Subs. Enjoy more subs, save more lives. Participating locations only. Firehouse Subs will donate a minimum of $1 million in 2019 to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by donating 0.11% of every purchase.